Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video it's something a bit different. I've had a couple of requests to find out about my video equipment that I use for my videos, and I thought, given that it's a lockdown, there's not much car action going on, it's a sort of right time to put a couple of these videos out. Now, truth be told, I did actually film the content for this video about a month or two ago, but I filmed it all in one take and it was about 40 minutes long. So what I've done is I've split that video into several sections, essentially about each type of camera or equipment that I use, just so the video is a bit more digestible, because I don't know about you, but when I see a 40-minute video in YouTube, it kind of puts me off watching it. So I'm going to do action cameras this time, so just talking a bit about the action camera that I use, and then I'll follow it up with another video about the other pieces of equipment, and I'll probably release them fairly quickly one after the other and put them in a playlist in case people want to watch all of them or just watch the videos that they're interested in. So with that, I'll hand over to me from 2 months ago, and I hope you enjoy this video about action cameras. A quick caveat before I get into it: I'm not a professional photographer, videographer or anything like that. Classic cars is my hobby. The video part of it I'm interested in, but it's certainly not something which I plough vast amounts of money in, so I don't get the latest and greatest of everything. So I'm not saying that the stuff I use is the best stuff to use, it's just the stuff I've sort of bought over the years, and it's what works for me. So I'll share my experiences with you, and then you can make an informed decision whether that is the right thing for you, or it might give you an idea of the kind of thing that you might like to look for. So we'll get into it. The first thing that I want to talk about really is the camera I use most often, and it's an action camera. So the reason you'd use an action camera typically is because of its wide angle lens and its robustness. So when you're sitting in a car, for example, and you want to put the camera not far away from you to film yourself, you want to get as much of sort of the car as you can into it if you want to, and your face obviously without looking like you're right up against the screen, and also on the outside of the vehicle, if you wanted to mount the the camera at all, then you would typically use an action camera because it'd be exposed to the elements and potentially might fall off. And action cameras tend to be waterproof more or less, and can withstand sort of bumps and scrapes and things, or they don't typically tend to cost thousands of pounds. If they fall off the car and get destroyed, it'll be annoying, but it won't be sort of catastrophic financially. So the action camera that I use most of the time is this one. It's a DJI Osmo Action. So this camera came out a few years ago in direct competition with GoPro, and I previously had a GoPro. I still use my GoPro actually, and that GoPro is a GoPro Hero 3 Plus Black, which came out in 2013, and it was superb when it came out. It was brilliant. It did everything I wanted it to, and as years went on, I wanted to upgrade my equipment, and I kind of had the choice between the DJI Osmo Action and I think it was the GoPro Hero 8 at the time. And the reason I chose this camera over the GoPro at the time was kind of for two reasons. The first reason was that the Osmo Action has a front screen, so if you're using it to sort of do a selfie or talk to camera, it's very easy to check whether your face is in the middle of the shot and you're not sort of cropped above and below or whatever. But also at the time, this was about £100 cheaper than the GoPro Hero 8, I think it was, which was out at the same time. So if that GoPro had a screen on the front, I probably would have gone for that, because I'm used to GoPros, and the software, if you use the app at all, I think is a bit better, and kind of the support I suppose might be slightly better as well in terms of third-party accessories, although a lot of them will work with this anyway. So I'm really pleased with this camera. It's got great stabilization, which is one of the main things that my old GoPro doesn't have, and it looks great, does what I want it to do, does video up to 4K, which I've started using now, but typically I used to just do 1080p at 60 frames a second, but now I sort of go to 4K 25 to match my camcorder, which is what I'm using here. So accessories wise, what I tend to use with this camera, well, first of all is this cage that it goes in, and this is primarily for being able to mount it to things. So it's got these two prongs here which you mount it to. But the other reason why I chose this particular cage is because it's got a cold shoe mount, and what you can do with this mount on the top is add things like shotgun mics and lights if you want to use those. The other thing I use with this particular camera is this mic adapter. So it just plugs in the side like that. It means you can use a standard 3.5mm jack to plug your microphone into there. I don't know whether the more modern GoPros have those built in, or if you need an adapter for those as well, but you need to buy a separate adapter for the Osmo Action. So if I was going to give advice for people buying these today, I'd probably say if you're on a budget, then get one of these. But if you want like an all singing, all dancing camera, then I probably would go for the latest GoPro, which is the Hero 9, which does have that front screen. They've added it in the most recent one there. Other accessories that I use with it are these handles, so just something to hold the camera by and keep it steady. This one is actually converts into a tripod, which is really cool. So you kind of have a bit of a two-in-one here, and it kind of pops out the top like that, and that's quite good. I mean, there's all different styles you can get of these, and on the top I've got this other adapter which basically turns the standard threaded tripod mount into more of a GoPro / Osmo Action style two-pronged mount, which are sort of typical for action cameras. So that's that one. I've got this other one which is quite cool. This is made by Manfrotto, which is more of a sort of well-known photography brand, Italian made, quite sturdy. I really like the sort of look and feel of this one. This is a good one for sort of holding, and it's a really sturdy and fairly weighty sort of tripod, so it won't get blown over, which this one is a bit more sort of cheap and lightweight and might fall over a bit more. This one's a bit better. And finally, sort of handle wise, is this one. It's made by GoPro. It's called the 3-way, I think, and essentially it's a handle, or it's got a tripod that unscrews out the bottom, which is quite useful, but its main feature is the fact it extends to be a taller tripod if you want it to be a taller tripod, or it's a really good sort of selfie stick. You can kind of not have the handle in the shot but get a lot of you in it. So when I go snowboarding, for example, I tend to use this if I'm filming myself coming down the mountain, because you get most of your body and a bit of the board in because the camera's that bit further away. Or if you're following someone, you can get the camera closer to them because of the wide angle nature of the lens there. So I think that's it in terms of action cameras. The other thing to mention, of course, for action cameras is the mounts. So as I'm doing these videos, the main thing I use is kind of these handles if I'm walking around filming stuff, but to actually mount it onto the side of the car or inside of the car, I use a variety of suction cups. I've got 3 here. This one is the smallest one, and this one is the one I'll typically use to fix it to the windscreen. It's only got a few things to adjust, and it's really easy and quick just to put it on. It's only one handle thing that you can use to put it on there. It's really easy to adjust, but the suction cup isn't that great, so sometimes it falls off, which is a bit annoying, but you know, you kind of weigh it up whether you want it to be stuck on there really firmly or it's a convenience thing. I'll choose convenience for that one. This one, another GoPro item, really well made suction cup and rated for up to like 100 miles an hour or something. Only a single suction cup on this, but when you put it on the car bodywork or a window on the outside or inside, it's rock solid. It will not come off. It's super sturdy, unless the surface is dirty or something, in which case it might lose suction, but I trust this. I put my camera on the outside of the car, put it next to the wheels, you know, on the wing down low. It does the job, and it's really sturdy, so I recommend a well made and probably a slightly more expensive suction cup such as this, because it's worth it versus the cost of potentially breaking a camera, so that's really good. And then I've got this one. Now this one I bought because I thought 3 suction cups, that's going to be amazing. but it's not, it's terrible. So these suction cups are reasonably cheaply made, it seems. It didn't cost me a lot of money, this. It was really cheap, and it really shows, unfortunately. It does stay on if you persevere with it and you get all of them sucked onto a flat piece of glass, but any sort of curve or anything really doesn't work. So if you're thinking of putting it on car bodywork, for example, or even curved glass, it's really tricky to get good suction on there, and this is just really disappointing. So I think this is a lesson in choosing something which is slightly more better well made but more expensive, even though it looks a bit more simple, over something which looks like it would be a better thing to use but is actually an inferior product. So just keep that in mind. Maybe check reviews and that sort of thing, even though I thought this had good reviews, but a bit of a disappointing one, this one. So one other thing on action cameras as well, just while I think of it, there are so many out there which are kind of the GoPro style that it's tempting to go for a super cheap one. So I've owned a couple of these cheaper ones, and when I've used them previously, I've used them on things like quadcopters, so drones, and the cost of them, didn't want to put a really expensive camera on something that might fall out of the sky and break, so I've kind of gone for these cheaper ones. But the thing that really disappoints me about them is the software that comes with them is really naff a lot of the time. Frustrating to use, not intuitive or anything. It's a bit more cheaply made, so the image quality is not quite as good as these more expensive products. But one of the key factors, especially for someone who does stuff like skiing, snowboarding, goes to places which are cold, is battery life. So I've got quite good battery life out of both my GoPro and my DJI Osmo Action there. They seem to perform okay in the cold because they heat up a bit when they're in use, and it's not too bad, and you just keep them in your pocket. But the cheaper cameras that I've bought, I found that the batteries just go so quickly, and I don't know if that's because the internal electronics are less efficient or if the battery's inferior, but they just don't seem to last as well. And as I found out with a cheaper one, if I used it as a webcam rather than an action cam and plugged in all the time, the battery exploded out of the side of it and wrecked it. So be careful with cheaper action cameras there.